Overpaying for anything sucks, especially socks, so why pay $45 for a single pair of grip socks when you can spend less than half? Pure Grip Socks Pro feature our best materials for optimal fit, moisture wicking, and performance at a fair price, just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Now, most of you watching this wouldn't have seen it, but my very first video that I ever uploaded to YouTube that more or less started my boot reviewing career, if you want to call it that, was an unboxing of the Adidas F50 Adizero Prime. To say the least, it's not a very good video. The camera work is laughable and I don't speak a single word. For those that would like to be entertained for a couple minutes, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen and you can go ahead and watch that. But I think what's kind of cool today is I get to more or less re-review the same boots, or at least a remake of said boots, in the form of the Adidas F50 Ghosted as part of the UCL pack, which features the exact upper from an F50 Adizero Prime that originally released in January 1st of 2011 with the sole plate and stud pattern, the Speedframe, taken from the modern X Ghosted series, a limited edition release that bears a retail price of $250. Which isn't necessarily cheap, but it is a heck of a lot cheaper than the OG F50 Adizero Prime, which retailed for $100 more than a regular synthetic F50 at the time, with a retail of $330. So with all that in mind, I thought it would be fun not just to compare this F50 Adizero Prime remake to the regular Speedflow 0.1, the current top-end speed boot from Adidas, but also see how it stacks up against the original boot from 2011. Have they improved that much when you put on the same upper, or have they actually taken a few steps back? We're gonna take a look at all of that, including how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around and watch the entire review. And if you are interested in a pair of these limited edition boots for yourself, they've been out for a couple days now. Unfortunately, they are mostly sold out, but if you are still interested in picking up a pair, you can check out the review page on my website, which is the first link down below. On that page, you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where if there is anything still available, you'll find it there. As always, if you guys do end up enjoying the video and perhaps want to see more comparisons between new boots and older boots, please don't forget to support this one with a like and let me know what you'd like to see down below in the comment section. Also guys, I have a goal of hitting 750,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of 2021. So for those of you that regularly watch the content, enjoy it, but maybe aren't subbed to the channel, it would mean the world to me if you could hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. So first things first, we need to compare these two boots when it comes to weight, because really the main appeal of the F50 Adizero Prime was its extremely lightweight construction. It was in fact the lightest football boot ever made back when it came out in 2011, shaving 20 grams off of the already ridiculously lightweight F50 Adizero for an extra $100. For those doing the math, that is $5 for every gram saved. The question is, how much lighter or heavier is the modern remake, which features borderline the exact same upper, but with a very different sole plate. Keep in mind, this is a size 9 US, this is a size 9.5 US, so it's not exactly a fair comparison, but the claimed weight by Adidas back in 2011 was 5.2 ounces for the F50 Adizero Prime, and you can see on the scale, they weigh in at 5.25 ounces, the equivalent of 149 grams, which is ridiculously lightweight. If this was a current model, it would be the lightest football boot on the market. We'll take these off the scale and we'll throw on the remake. Again, half a size larger, and it weighs in at 6.3 ounces, the equivalent of 179 grams. So you're talking about a weight difference of just over a full ounce, which is definitely noticeable. These are very lightweight, but these are effectively weightless. And I guess if you're wondering how much progress Adidas has made in the weight category in the last 10 years, I guess basically none. But here's the thing, does weight even matter when you're talking about a football boot that is already super light? Yes, these are lighter, and that's definitely noticeable when you're wearing the boots. It has an impact on experience, but I don't think the extra ounce is going to weigh you down so much to where it's going to impact your ability to perform at the highest or lowest level, depending on your abilities, because we all know that it's the player and not the boots. Boots matter, but they're not going to necessarily make you play better. Why is there a weight difference between these two? Well, it's not the uppers, and we'll get to that in just a second. It's the sole plates, and this is where I think Adidas have evolved in the best way possible. Now, the original Adizero Prime features the original sprint frame from 2010. This is really what revolutionized the Adidas brand and really the football boot industry, where at that time, every brand was now chasing this super lightweight construction, this really being the lightest sole plate on the market by quite a long shot. And the variation of it that you got with the Prime featured this laser etching kind of grid pattern that runs through the heel counter as well as the sole plate. It is very, very fine, and it maybe shaves a gram off the boot, if that. In fact, it's so fine that once you actually start playing in these boots, all of that etching pretty much rubs off and it just looks like a normal sprint frame anyways. But nonetheless, this was a ridiculously lightweight, really thin plastic sole plate that I think by today's standards, people would be more or less unimpressed with. I think that if you look at something like the current Puma Ultra 1.3, that's a very similar design to this, but one that just feels a lot better, both in terms of the material used as well as the overall design. It just feels better underfoot and definitely has more response to it. These are sole plates that could crack over time because of the type of material used, as well as the overall design being very flat through the forefoot and toe box area. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, this is again something they introduced with the original F50. I think it's more so designed with weight savings in mind rather than actual performance, because despite the very cool look that this boot has with the multicolor studs, the actual studs themselves, being these fairly large triangles, don't really provide the most bite, and in my opinion, kind of subpar traction if we're comparing it to most other stud patterns that are currently available. Where the modern remake features the Speedframe taken from the current X Speedflow 0.1 and Speedflow Plus models. It features a heel counter that's very similar in design, but definitely structurally a little bit more sound and rigid. And then through the midfoot, you're going to find more ribbing through the heel and midfoot that again feels more structurally sound than that original sprint frame does. And then of course you have the implementation of a Carbitex carbon fiber insert through the forefoot that provides a tremendous amount of spring back every single time you bend your foot. There is legitimate energy return out of this sole plate that you will notice with every single step you take. From a tech perspective, this is one of the most impressive sole plates ever made, and certainly the best implementation of carbon fiber that we've ever seen on a pair of football boots. Not to mention, it also has a little bit of a raised forefoot similar to a sprinter spike, which does a really nice job of keeping you on your toes and giving you that light on your feet sensation, despite not being as light as the original F50 Adizero Prime. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, it's the same general layout. I really would have loved to have seen mismatched studs and maybe just an original colorway for this remake in general, but the studs themselves from a performance standpoint with their bladed shape provide way more bite and in general just feel much more aggressive than what you're going to find from that original sprint frame sole plate and stud pattern. This to me is a gigantic leap forward from a performance and feel perspective. Which brings us to the uppers, where I have to applaud Adidas once again for staying so true to the original with a remake football boot. This upper is about as one-to-one as it possibly could have been 10 years after coming out. And if you look at the original F50 Adizero Prime, part of what made this lighter over a regular Adizero model was a slightly thinner upper. It's a single layer of synthetic with all of this additional texturing, or I guess micro texturing on the surface. You can see here in kind of like these clear lines that streak across the upper. You of course have this band in matte finish across the bottom of the foot, which I'm not sure if that's actually a tech feature or if it was just a design element that made you know that it was an F50 Adizero Prime rather than a regular model. And you even have this reinforcement on the inside of either side of the upper to basically just add some structure on what was such a thin material that admittedly by today's standards is kind of plasticky, but it's also kind of pretty close, surprisingly, to a lot of the synthetic uppers that brands have been rolling out for 2021, like the Vaporposit material from the Mercurial and like the material you're going to find on the upper of the Puma Ultra 1.3, where the remake is pretty well the exact same thing, just in silver, blue, and pink, which is not an original colorway. I really would have liked to have seen a remake of an OG, but I think what they've come up with is actually pretty cool. You can even see up close, it has that same checkerboard finish as a micro texturing, those translucent lines streaking across the upper as well. Cool little gradient fade in this graphic right here. The matte blue, which has a little bit of a gradient fade as well as you go from toe to midfoot, which is pretty cool. And then even internally in pink, you're gonna find those same reinforcement elements on the inside of the upper, which is really cool to see. The same synthetic tongue, the off-centered lacing system, which I think does make the F50 Adizero in the early days at the very least kind of unique for a pair of speed boots, because normally speed boots feature very central lacing systems, so that definitely separates it from a lot of other uppers out there. And then the heel liner, they've also stayed true to the original, which might not be the best in terms of overall comfort, where it's got this little tail, something that has kind of become a thing again with the Adidas Speed line in the X boots. But you'll notice on the inside that it's a very thin heel liner material that only really covers the back of the heel. For the most part on the sides, there's no extra padding at all. There's minimal padding at the very back. And I must admit, I don't find these boots through the heel nearly as comfortable as a regular pair of Speedflows, but this is how the original F50s were, and that's what they have done here on this remake variation, which is quite cool to see. And if you look at all the little stitching details and the way that this upper is constructed, they did everything they possibly could to make this just like the original was. And then the insole, I'll give you guys a quick look at that as well. This is not an exact remake. It features a mesh liner on top. This has the Adidas logo, the other has the Champions League logo, and then it's a single layer of this black foam with some perforations. Very basic, but it gets the job done. So here are the boots on feet, and we'll get into those in just a second, but I do want to mention the pink Pure Grip Socks Pro that I'm currently wearing. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we wanted to do our part in contributing at puregripsocks.com, where every pink product sold throughout the month of October, a significant amount of the proceeds will be donated to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. As for the fit and feel on feet, I must admit that I'm pretty surprised at how similar these two football boots feel. Yes, the underfoot feel of the sole plate is different, the raised forefoot, and just general structure of the modern Speedframe just feels so much better to me than the super lightweight, super thin Speedframe of the OG Adizero Prime. But the feel of the upper and even the shape of these two boots, while there are minor differences, they're not as different as you would expect them to be. I did mention that I'm not in love with the minimalist style heel liner that these two boots have. I wish that's something they maybe would have improved on the remake, but I also understand why they stayed so true to the original. It probably would have changed up the feel too much. And the one thing I also don't really miss about this upper, as well as the off-centered lacing system, is you end up with a lot of dead space in this area of the foot, just based on the lacing system not really being able to pull that part of the upper down properly. But that's of course something that will vary a lot from one person to the next, simply based on foot shape. In terms of overall fit though, they fit quite nice and the upper feels quite good. If you're looking for that super thin barefoot feel on the ball, you are getting it from the remake just as you did on the original. From a width perspective, they have significant width to them. If anything, I would say that the remake is a little bit wider just based on the sole plate base, having that little bit of extra width. If you have super wide feet, probably not a great option, but I do think they will fit most people. And then as far as sizing is concerned, I am wearing these in a 9 because it's the only pair that I have. They're a little bit smaller than I would like them to be, where the remake I'm wearing in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you are looking to get a hold of the remakes, I would personally recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So which one is better, the OG or the remake? And I think credit to Adidas with the F50 Adizero Prime, it maybe was a little bit ahead of its time, because even though it's 10 years old, I think it's still very wearable by today's standards. It is incredibly lightweight compared to anything that's currently available, but it does have its drawbacks in the sole plate and stud pattern that I think does feel a little bit flimsy and not as aggressive as I think a lot of people would expect from a top-end speed boot in 2021, certainly from one that costs as much as this one did. The remake, however, gives you the exact same experience in regards to the upper. The upper actually works quite well with the newer sole plate base and shape that this football boot has. I think this sole plate is just superior to what was featured on the original, and while they might not be as lightweight, if you're looking for a lot of the feel that you got from an OG F50, you're definitely getting it from the remake. So the question is, which one would I pick? Those. I would buy a regular X Speedflow 0.1, and I realize that is a boring pick because these are two very exciting football boots, and I think there's a lot of people that are really going to enjoy playing in this F50 Adizero Prime remake. It is a cool boot from a nostalgia standpoint and actually does hold up pretty well by today's standards. I just think it's more plasticky, it's more rigid, it's not as comfortable as the original Speedflow 0.1, and if I were picking a speed boot to wear for 250 bucks, this is the one that I would buy. Anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in these remakes while they're still available, first link down below, go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. If you are not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with a little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.